Did you know that within the first 100 milliseconds of meeting someone, your brain has already decided if they're trustworthy? 1/10 of 1 second. Before they've said a word, before they've even finished a handshake, a primitive part of your mind has already passed judgment. In my line of work, that 1/10 of a second could be the difference between life and death. It could be the moment you trust the man who's about to lead you into an ambush, or the moment you dismiss the witness who holds the key to your entire case. For you, it might not be a life-or-death decision in a dark alley, but make no mistake, that first impression governs who you hire, who you trust with your money, who you let into your life, and who you mark as a threat. The stakes are always high. We're told not to judge a book by its cover, but our brains are hardwired to do exactly that. It's a survival mechanism, a relic from a time when quickly assessing a stranger, friend or foe, was essential to staying alive. This process is run by a little almond-shaped part of your brain called the amygdala. It's the ancient, emotional core of your mind, your internal alarm system. It doesn't do nuance. It doesn't care about someone's bad day or the stain on their shirt. It makes an instant, gut-level call based on a flood of visual and nonverbal data. Research says we make up to 11 significant judgments in those first 7 seconds. Are they confident? Are they successful? Are they dominant? Are they dangerous? By the time your conscious, rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, catches up, the verdict is already in. The rest of the conversation is often just a search for evidence to prove your gut was right. I remember a fraudster we called Silky Sullivan. The man could walk into a room of seasoned investors and walk out with their retirement funds. His first 7 seconds were a masterpiece. Impeccable suit, not too flashy. A warm, open smile that reached his eyes. A posture that was relaxed but upright, projecting effortless confidence. His handshake was firm, dry, and brief. He met everyone's gaze with what felt like genuine interest. He disarmed everyone. My partner and I sat behind a two-way mirror watching him charm a new mark, and even I felt the pull. He was a predator who had perfected the art of the non-threatening first impression. It took us weeks to untangle his web, because his initial victims wanted to believe he was who he appeared to be. They fought us, defended him, all because he aced those first 7 seconds. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate, unexplainable distrust? That was your amygdala screaming at you. The question is, was it right? Learning to distinguish between primal instinct and learned prejudice is a skill that takes a lifetime to hone. The first step is to recognize what's happening under the hood. The next time you meet someone new, a contractor, a new doctor, a neighbor, I want you to try something. After the first 10 seconds, take a mental step back. Acknowledge your gut feeling. Okay, I feel like this person is trustworthy, shifty, arrogant. Now, make a conscious decision to look for objective information that might contradict that feeling. This simple act of pausing and questioning is how you begin to take control of a process that, until now, has been running your life on autopilot. You start to see the man, not just the shadow he casts. So, if our brains are making these lightning-fast judgments, what are they actually looking at? If you ask most people, they'll say it's what you say. It's not. In fact, what you say barely registers. The famous 55 to 38 to 7 rule breaks it down. 55% of a first impression is your visual appearance. Your clothes, your grooming, your posture. 38% is your nonverbal communication, your body language, your gestures, your facial expressions, and a tiny 7% is the actual words you use. Think about that. A staggering 93% of your initial impact has nothing to do with your brilliant opening line. It's all communicated before you've even finished saying, "Nice to meet you." This is the world I lived in. In an interrogation room, I wasn't just listening to a suspect's alibi, I was watching how they said it. Were their shoulders tense? Were they making eye contact or staring at a point on the wall? Were their hands open and relaxed, or clenched into fists? The story the body tells is almost always more honest than the one coming out of the mouth. This ability to draw broad conclusions from small slices of behavior is what psychologists call thin slicing. It, as our brain, has remarkable ability to find patterns and make accurate judgments based on very limited information. We do it unconsciously every day. You see a person walking down the street with a slumped posture, avoiding eye contact, and you instantly tag them as insecure or sad. You see someone else stride purposefully, head held high, and you read them as confident and in charge. Most of the time, you're probably right. The problem is when our thin slicing is based on faulty data or prejudice. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was a sweet, grandmotherly woman in her late 70s, brought in for questioning about a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. My younger colleagues dismissed her as a confused old lady who got caught in the middle of something. Her first impression was perfect for that role. She wore a lavender cardigan, smelled faintly of mothballs, and hunched over as if the weight of the world was on her small shoulders. She looked frail, harmless. But I watched her hands. While her posture screamed victim, her hands were calm. They rested in her lap. No wringing, no fidgeting. And her eyes. Her eyes were sharp. They weren't darting around nervously. They were watching, calculating, assessing each of us. That was the thin slice that didn't fit. She was performing the role of a confused old woman, but her eyes and hands betrayed the sharp, controlled mind of the person running the entire operation. She de-weaponized society's first impression of a sweet old lady to act as the perfect cover. How do you apply this in your own life? Start with a simple, practical habit. I call it the doorway reset. Before you walk through any doorway into a new social situation, a meeting, a party, even your own home after a long day, take 1 second. Stop. Take a deep breath. Pull your shoulders back. Lift your chin slightly. Put a gentle, relaxed expression on your face. You are consciously deciding how you want to enter that room. You're taking control of your 55%. It's not about being fake, it's about being intentional. When you walk into a room with purpose, people feel it. It changes how they react to you from the very first second. Think about it. When you enter a space, do you tend to shrink, hoping not to be noticed? Or do you enter with a presence that says, "I'm here"? What message are you sending before you even open your mouth? Let's break down how these principles play out in the real world. Forget abstract theory, this is about tactics. I'm going to take a few common scenarios and show you how a detective reads them. You can use the same lens to understand and navigate your own life with more control. First, let's take the classic job interview, but we'll reframe it. For me, this was vetting a new partner or confidential informant. The principles are identical. The moment they walk through the door, the assessment begins. Let's look at two versions. Candidate A shuffles in, shoulders slightly stooped. His handshake is soft, a little damp. His eyes dart from me to the floor, to the window, anywhere but my face. He gives a tight, forced smile. Before he's even sat down, his body has told me he's nervous, lacks confidence, and is potentially hiding something. Candidate B enters with an upright posture. He makes immediate, steady eye contact, holds it for 3 seconds, and gives a genuine smile. His handshake is firm and dry. He sits down, not ramrod straight like a soldier, but leaning in slightly, signaling engagement and interest. Who do you think I'm going to trust with sensitive information? It's not a conscious bias, it's a biological response. Candidate B's nonverbals communicated confidence, honesty, and control. Now, a social gathering. My wife used to drag me to these things, and I could never turn off my professional brain. Most people wander into a party and look for a drink or a familiar face. I look at the geometry of the room. I watch the flow. You can learn everything you need to know by observing. Watch how people group together. Are the groups open, with space for others to join, or are they closed off, with backs turned to the room? Who is holding court, with everyone else's body language angled towards them? That's your center of influence. Who is on the periphery, watching? That could be your observer, your wallflower, or your predator. When you decide to approach someone, don't come at them head-on like an attack. Approach at a slight angle, into their peripheral vision. It's less confrontational. Your opening smile shouldn't be a wide, toothy grin. That can read as aggressive. A simple, closed-mouth, genuine smile is far more disarming. It invites connection instead of demanding it. Here's a practical, low-stakes way to train this skill. Next time you're in a public place, a coffee shop, the DMV, an airport lounge, just watch. Don't stare, just observe. Look at the nonverbal cues. Look at the postures, the gestures, the little dramas playing out in silence. See how people interact with the space and with each other. Who seems comfortable and in command of their environment? Who seems anxious and out of place? You'll start to see the patterns, the silent language everyone is speaking. It's the best training ground in the world because the stakes are zero. You're just an observer, a detective in training. Have you ever consciously noticed the power dynamics in a room, just by looking at who stands where and how they hold themselves? Start looking. You'll be amazed at what you see. Now, we need to talk about the darker side of this coin. So far, we've discussed how to make a good impression and how to read others. But these same tools, in the wrong hands, are weapons. Master manipulators, con artists, and cult leaders don't just hope for a good first impression, they engineer it with chilling precision. They understand the 7-second rule better than anyone, and they use it to bypass your rational defenses and plug directly into your emotional needs. Understanding their tactics is the best way to make yourself immune to them. One of their most powerful tools is something called mirroring, or the chameleon effect. When we like someone and feel a rapport with them, we unconsciously start to mimic their body language. We'll cross our legs the same way, pick up our coffee cup at the same time, adopt the same vocal cadence. It's a natural part of human bonding. Predators do it consciously. They will subtly adopt your posture, your gestures, your rate of speech from the moment they meet you. If you lean forward, they lean forward. If you talk slowly, they slow their speech to match. This creates a powerful and deeply subconscious feeling of familiarity and trust. You feel like you've known them for years. Your brain is saying, "This person is like me. This person is safe." It's an illusion, a manufactured connection designed to lower your guard. I worked a case involving a charismatic financial advisor who bilked dozens of seniors out of their life savings. His name was Julian Thorne, and he was a master of this. We interviewed his victims, and they all said the same thing. I just felt so comfortable with him. It was like talking to an old friend. We watched surveillance tapes from his office. A new client, a retired teacher, would sit down, nervously clutching her purse. Julian would sit the exact same way, a look of gentle concern on his face. She'd lean in to tell him something confidential, and he'd lean in right with her, matching her posture perfectly. He created an instant bubble of trust. He made every single person feel seen, heard, and completely understood in the first 7 seconds. He wasn't selling financial products, he was selling a feeling of absolute trust. And once he had that, getting their money was easy. So, how do you protect yourself? You need to develop a healthy skepticism of instant charm. Be cautious of anyone who seems too perfect, too agreeable, too in sync with you right from the start. True, genuine rapport takes time to build. A manufactured rapport happens in an instant. If you meet someone and feel an overwhelming sense of comfort and familiarity almost immediately, let that be a small, quiet alarm bell in your head. It's not a reason to run away, but it's a reason to slow down. Ask more questions. Don't share too much personal information early on. Keep a little bit of professional distance. Has a salesperson or a new acquaintance ever made you feel so completely at ease that you found yourself agreeing to things or sharing information you normally would not? Think back to those first few moments. What were they doing with their body, their voice, their eyes to create that effect? Recognizing the technique is the first step to disarming it. Once that first impression is made, whether it's good, bad, or masterfully manipulated, it has a stubborn tendency to stick. It's like quick-setting cement. This isn't just a social quirk, it's a well-documented psychological phenomenon, and it can have dangerous consequences. Two of the main culprits behind this are confirmation bias and the halo effect. Understanding them is crucial because they show how an innocent 7-second judgment can cascade into a complete misreading of a person's character, sometimes for years. Confirmation bias is the tendency for our brains to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. If your first impression of someone is negative, say they were rude to a waiter, your brain will then subconsciously look for more evidence of their rudeness. You'll notice every time they interrupt someone. You'll interpret their directness as aggression. You'll remember their faults and forget their kindnesses. The opposite is also true. If you have a great first impression, you'll start looking for proof that you were right. You'll see their confidence as competence and their mistakes as charming quirks. Your brain doesn't like to admit it was wrong, so it will filter reality to match its initial verdict. This led to one of the biggest mistakes of my early career. I was working with a young, sharp detective, a real go-getter. We were investigating a series of violent robberies. We brought in a suspect who just looked the part. He was scruffy, had shifty eyes, and a confrontational attitude from the second he sat down. His first impression was terrible. My young partner locked onto him. He was convinced this was our guy. Over the next few weeks, every piece of ambiguous evidence he interpreted as proof of guilt. An unconfirmed sighting near one of the crime scenes. That's him. A flimsy alibi? He's lying. He was so blinded by his confirmation bias, fueled by that first bad impression, that he completely ignored a piece of exculpatory evidence, a time-stamped receipt that put the suspect miles away during one of the robberies. He dismissed it as a fake. We wasted 3 weeks down a rabbit hole because of a bad first impression. The real perpetrator, a clean-cut, well-spoken man no one would suspect, hit 2 more locations before we finally caught on. It taught me a brutal lesson. Your first instinct is a guide, not a god. It's a starting point for an investigation, not the conclusion. The halo effect is a close cousin. This is when our overall impression of a person is influenced by our judgment of one specific trait. If someone is physically attractive, we tend to assume they are also intelligent, kind, and funny. If they are well-spoken and charismatic in their first impression, we create a halo around them, and it becomes difficult to see their flaws. This is what Silky Sullivan and Julian Thorne exploited. They created such a powerful, positive halo in their first 7 seconds that their victims were incapable of seeing the red flags that followed. How do you fight this in your own mind? It takes conscious effort. If you have a strong initial reaction to someone, positive or negative, put a mental asterisk next to their name. Make it a point to challenge your own assumption. If you instantly like someone, force yourself to find one thing about them that you might disagree with or question. If you instantly dislike them, force yourself to find one genuinely positive quality. It feels unnatural, but it's like a mental exercise that keeps you from falling into the trap of your own biases. Think of someone in your life whom you initially misjudged. What was it about that first impression that was so misleading, and what specific event or piece of information finally forced you to change your mind? So we've dissected the science, we've walked through the scenarios, and we've looked at the dangers. Now let's talk about control. How do you step into that crucial 7-second window and ensure you are the author of the story being told, not just a character in a story someone else is writing? This isn't about creating a fake persona. The moment you try to be someone you're not, you project insecurity, and that's the worst first impression of all. This is about authenticity, amplified. It's about clearing away the nervous static so the real you, the confident, capable you, can be seen and heard clearly from the first moment. Let's start with a technique from the world of psychology that be adapted for my own purposes. They call it the power pose. I call it the pre-interrogation stance. Before you enter a high-stakes situation, find a private space, a restroom, an empty office, even your car. For 2 minutes, stand tall. Put your hands on your hips, push your shoulders back, lift your chin, and take up space. Breathe deeply. It sounds ridiculous, but the science is sound. This posture actually changes your body chemistry, increasing testosterone and decreasing cortisol. You will walk out of that room feeling, and therefore looking, more confident and less anxious. You're not faking confidence, you're generating it from the inside out. Too little and you seem untrustworthy or weak. Too much and you seem aggressive or creepy. The key is what I call purposeful contact. When you first meet someone's gaze, hold it for about 3 seconds, long enough to register their eye color. Then use the triangle method. Look from one of their eyes to the other eye, then briefly down to their mouth and back up. This keeps your gaze active and engaged without turning into a stare down. It communicates interest and confidence. Practice with people on television. It's a simple mechanical skill that makes a world of difference. Finally, your voice. Nerves make our vocal cords tighten, leading to a higher, weaker pitch. Before a meeting, I used to hum a low note in the car on the way over. It relaxes the larynx and helps you speak from your diaphragm, giving your voice a richer, calmer, more authoritative tone. Another trick is to smile slightly just before you start to speak. It's nearly invisible to the other person, but it physically changes the shape of your mouth and adds warmth to your vocal tone instantly. The most common mistake people make is overcompensation. The nervous person who talks too loudly and laughs too much. The insecure person who gives a bone-crushing handshake. Your goal is calm, quiet confidence, not loud, boisterous dominance. It's a relaxed readiness. Remember, the 93% of your impression that is nonverbal is an expression of your internal state. Master your internal state, and you will master your first impression. Your first 7 seconds are a conversation that happens without words. They set the tone for everything that follows. They can open doors or slam them shut. You have been letting this conversation happen on autopilot your entire life. Now, you have the tools to pick up the controls. My challenge to you is this. Pick one technique, just one. The doorway reset, the triangle eye contact, the pre-meeting power pose. Try it once this week. Don't build it up in your head. Just do it. Then come back here and share your experience in the comments. Tell us what you tried and what you noticed. The first step is always the hardest, but it's the only one that matters.